outside the realm of Islam with Wahhabism, you know that, and we have a discussion.
Being a citizen of a secular state that says in the constitution that men and women are equal, I expect from the state and I expect from my fellow citizens that approach of equality. That means if I run the risk of being forced into marriage by my father and he defends that, I'm not saying it's Islamic, but if he defends that in the name of his religion or his culture, that the state, the police, will take care of me and that I can go out there as a young woman, a teenager or a young girl and say, I need protection and I can count on that protection. Because a lot of discrimination is discussed, but this type of discrimination is not discussed. When little girls are removed from school at age 13, 14, 15 to be married off, if they were, native girls, and the same thing would be discovered, I think there would be a real catastrophe, a real commotion, except when minorities, and we see more and more of Muslim minorities doing this, defending this practice in the name of culture and in the name of religion. And so we, as Muslims, Muslim women within our communities, are discriminated against by the state, and that only compounds the structural discrimination that we face within our families. And the only time that secular states ever act is when girls are killed. But then only the single killer is followed. It's called honor killings in some countries. I don't see what's honorable in it.
You are totally right that we have readings and we have people coming with an absolute reading and taking one verse and saying this is the way to deal with women. For example, taking one verse saying it's in the Quran that it's mentioned beating women and say this is possible. But we have to put things into context and we have to understand that there is a revelation taking 23 years and the Prophet himself never beat a woman, and this is the example. So we have to say clearly it's against Islam. Am I representing all the Muslims? No. Is it Islamic? Yes. Do we have to struggle to change the minds of Muslims? Yes. But this is a struggle, an intra-community dialogue. So my problem is that by saying this, that you are Islamophobic. Not at all. My problem I had with you, and this is the only thing which is the difference I have with you, is the way you are opening the critical door. Because you are not always saying, I know that not all the Muslims are saying this. I heard you, I read you, and saying Islam is promoting that. So when you are saying, essentializing, Islam is this, we have this verse in the Quran, so Muslims are going to deal. This is the problem. This is Islamophobia. Essentialization is a racist process. When you say, because Islam is this, they are acting, with this I disagree. Now to be critical with Muslims, I'm sorry. Read the books, listen to the tapes, and you will see that I'm very, very critical with Muslims. Self-criticism is part of the process. But the question is the way you are doing this. Are you working to change the mentality or to please an audience? Because if to please the Western audience, it could be very easy. I could be critical, but it's not going to change anything. I say, okay, look, I am against death penalty. I am against corporal punishment. And I am against stoning. I am against it. Now I'm dealing with Muslims. If I say this from where I am, so okay, this is a Swiss westernized man who is just, okay, he wants to please the West. Now I want to change mentality. So I have to deal with Muslims and say, okay, come to the text. The texts are saying this, that's true. The text, the Quran is stating about corporal punishment and death penalty, not about stoning men and women. But we have text. I'm asking 3 questions to the scholar. What do the texts say? What are the conditions? In which context? Come and talk. And while you are talking, we stop everything. Stop. This is what we call moratorium. In order for me to go towards abolition. But this is the only to change mentality. I also say, oh no, he is suspicious. So when Jacques Chirac is saying moratorium and death penalty going to Chinese, I'd say this is a noble moratorium. When Tariq Ramadan is saying the same for Muslims, oh, this is a suspicious moratorium. I'm sorry, you have to decenter yourself and knowing how to deal with people. You have 2 choices, to please an audience or to change mentalities. Self-criticism is something that is needed in the Islamic. You are right, we are dealing with a crisis. The only thing I want you to say is not all Muslims. It's not Islam per se. There are trends and we are struggling. And you are saying the facts are showing that the literalist views are the majority. I'm sorry, in every European country, all the facts are saying the contrary. Yes, there is a lack of freedom in the great majority of the Arab Islamic majority countries, yes. Is this because of Islam? No, you cannot just essentialize. We have a crisis in Islam and we have to ask for democratization. In which way a democratization will take place in the Islamic majority country, the Arab Islamic majority country, is not by saying this is because Islam. It's in the name of their hopes, in the name of their religion, to act against dictatorships and to ask them to, from within, to try to find their way. Democratic principles are not disputable. They are unnegotiable. Rule of law, equal citizenship, universal suffrage, accountability, separation of power. This is not to be discussed. Now, the society and the Arab Muslim society should find their models. The principles are universal, the models are historical, and you cannot impose a model. You know why? Because the Swedish model is not the British model, which is not the French model. Every society has its own model. Let the people find their model, but don't accept compromising the principles. This is what we are saying.
We as Muslims, if we reflect on the morality, the religious morality and the civilizational morality that history has given us, we have failed, and that does not mean that we will not exist anymore or anything like that. That means we can learn. And that's why I love to read these Western thinkers, and I love to look at the West and say, hey, there are a few things that they've done better than we have, and we can learn from that without entirely relinquishing what we have. I don't believe that the world was built in 6 days, and I don't believe in Allah, and I don't believe in angels, and I don't want to impose that on anyone. But I think that as a civilization, as a culture, we can learn a lot from the West, and we can learn a lot from other cultures that have learned from the West without losing our identity. I don't feel that my identity is as easily threatened as many Muslims hold it to be. In your case, you take the assumption that the Quran is the word of God, so does Bin Laden. You are charming and handsome, and you attract a huge number, a huge audience, because you're eloquent. But then you're not the only one. There are more handsome, more charismatic Muslim men, such as Bin Laden. The only difference is, there is a big difference, because what Bin Laden does is he is consistent in what he says, and you're terribly inconsistent.
Exactly.
And I think that if
Can you prove this?
Well, if you say, for example, that you want to contextualize, you just said Islam and democracy and Islam and liberalism and so on are compatible. And I think if Allah in the Quran says, demands total submission, total obedience on the one hand, and on the other hand you say it is compatible with values that say the individual can make his or her own choice, then at least in the language that we, in the semantic, in the language that we speak, we are talking about a lot of inconsistency. And for young Muslim men who are looking for some kind of direction, who are disappointed with the West or who are disappointed with their lives, I think that it's much easier to follow and believe what Bin Laden says, because what he says is written in the Quran, what he says is written in the Hadith, and what should be done is more consistent than what you do. That's my only accusation to you.